Welcome back, Elden Ring fans, to another video. It's almost time for the Game Awards, and if you're like me, you've been waiting with bated breath, trying to find every little bit of information you can on Elden Ring's new DLC that's been, waited on for so long, Shadows of the Erdtree, and that kind of brings us to today's topic. Everybody's going to go ahead and say, hey, there may be a sign of it being at the Game Awards, maybe an announcement, and I expect to see maybe something like a cinematic trailer, and then maybe a release date or even a yearly release date like 2024. Nothing solid and proof yet because they just haven't given us enough information to really go with. So I wanted to go ahead and talk about what is inside the DLC. Now, when you hear of that, you're probably like, oh, Godwyn and Miquella. Of course, you hear that all the time with other people's videos. But I actually want to go into depth on what other stuff could actually be in it. We're not just talking about two characters that are going to be added. We're talking about, statistic wise, when it comes to gameplay wise, there's going to be new things that I expect to see from this DLC. I don't just expect, Godwyn and Miquella and crap. I expect to actually see a lot more in-depth situations, some interesting stuff, and that's what we're going to go over today. So let's go ahead and get into the video. So the first thing that I think the DLC really needs to pump up is the new areas and NPCs. Of course, we just talked about Miquella and Godwyn. Those are two NPCs that I, of course, think are going to be added, but I want to see some interesting characters. Dark Souls is a beloved franchise that FromSoft has always had, and they've done really well with keeping up with new NPCs being added. There was Lap, and of course that was just patches, but Lap was completely new to us. He had a completely different story. He had a different perspective of the world, and it built onto the lore of the game. So we have the new areas, which I think if you took something like Stormvale Castle and you took the Halig Tree and you had them both come together and make it about the size of the capital, like the inside of the capital, that would be one of the craziest looking areas, and also one of probably the best area in the whole game, which is something we can expect. Dark Souls 3 had the Ring City and the Ashes of Ariandel. Ashes of Ariandel was interesting, and of course it had a very different art style for the actual game itself. But when it came to the Ring City really was where it was at. It built in more enemies. It had different quest lines. And we also had diverse locations and hidden walls. I don't see very many hidden walls in Elden Ring. I don't even see very many traps or, different paths to really go. I mean, of course, there's certain paths you can take to get to the same location, but nothing that reroutes you super crazy. So whenever it comes down to it, I want to see some new fresh areas that are going to entice me to go ahead and take a new gander into the game, or even some traps to slow me down, to make me cautious, something I've never seen before. Instead of a mimic tear, we have a mimic chest, something like that, because those are beloved creatures that have been inside of other games. There's traps, of course, and dungeons and stuff like that, and it's just something that I think they kind of lacklustered on. They had the same basic traps in every single mini dungeon and everything else like that. So we're going to go ahead and talk about the second thing I think the DLC needs, and it definitely needs build variety. We need build variety and new weapons. So whenever it comes down to build variety, there's something called a fundamentalist build, and that has to do with faith and intelligence. Faith and intelligence in fundamentalist build is something that Radigan came up with Miquella. So they both work together on fundamentalist incantations, and there's only 3 of them in the game. So I think that if they're going to have Miquella in here, or they're going to have more information on Radigan and maybe even America, they need to add more of those. They need to give us an incentive to use those, or even an infusement that lets us use them, kind of like something like, magic and or arcane, which comes into occult, and with the Oracle spells. Oracle spells are another build that's an int arcane build, and there's only 2 bubble spells in the whole game, and it's kind of weird that they don't do a different type of damage or even don't really do too much damage at all. You can make them do crazy damage, of course. You can do that with everything in the game. But there's only so much variety. There's not really... there's no reason to make an int arcane build without those in mind. So I would like to see more spells and definitely more weapons. Maybe even a whole new infusement type, like I said. Something like Dark Moon. You could have Intelligence Arcane and it ups the Frostbite while keeping the magic, you know, on a lower hand. Or it does something completely crazy out there. Just completely blow us away with that. I think that it just needs to have that. And we're going to go ahead and talk about the third thing here. And this is one of the most important alongside the areas. And this is unique enemy design. You can't have enemies and bosses that keep being reskins. I think what really kills Elden Ring for a lot of people is you have a lot of reskins. Of course, you can think of that in Dark Souls 3. Oh, the Lothric Knights and the Hollows were really overused. But Hollows were peasants. You know, they were located in certain areas, but they weren't in every single area. So why are there peasants? Why are there Godric soldiers? Why are there Haligtree soldiers? Just reskins of the same enemy AI everywhere. I get it. Those are like the peasants / soldiers of the group, but there's no uniqueness to any of the enemies. Everybody, everywhere has troops. Everywhere. I get it. There's a whole war that we're talking about when it comes down to the shattering. And I do think that maybe the DLC will have something to do with the shattering in particular. I definitely think this will be tied to timeline, but we'll get into that into a completely different video next time. Hopefully after the Game Awards, if we get a release date and a cinematic trailer. But I really think that if they reskin any of these bosses, they're going to piss people off. I will be pissed. I'm tired of fighting the same fucking pumpkin head that I turned around and fought like 5 minutes ago outside the dungeon, inside the dungeon as a boss. There's no reason for that. I could understand in the beginning of the game, if you outsourced it like as a circle and you made the radius and said, here's a bunch of pumpkin heads and they're bosses and they're really tough enemies. And then you outsourced from that and said, here's Haligtree Knights or Banished Knights. I could understand, but they did not do that. And it makes it so much harder on them. So like I said, I really wanted to go ahead and give a deep dive into this. If you guys agree with me or you guys are really looking forward to the Elden Ring DLC, let me know in the comments below. Hopefully, you know, put some dreams down there you hope to see. But let me know if there's anything that you guys really want to see or you guys hope to see improvements on, or are you guys tired of reskins when it comes to bosses or anything else like that? Do you guys hope for an Anor Londo area? I know you guys are probably looking at the video right now. You know, Anor Londo is one of the greatest areas of all time when it comes to Dark Souls. It's such a big deal when it comes down to the fluidness of the game and a lot of people's experience. Everybody remembers their first time walking into Anor Londo and coming out here in Pontiff and seeing, you know, the whole world from a different perspective and what it was. And it was just a correlation of everything we've ever been through. So like I said, if you guys like this video and you guys want more content and you guys are hoping to see the DLC at the Game Awards, go ahead and leave a like down below, leave a comment, and let me know what you guys want to see in Shadows of the Erd Tree and at the Game Awards. So I'll leave you guys to it. See you guys after the Game Awards, and peace out, everybody.